Welcome to CMC Presents, a series of musical vignettes for our community. My name is Tobias Werner. I'm a cellist and the music director of the Chamber Music Conference. Today's topic will be how to prepare a piece of chamber music, and I always find that very exciting. I get to learn a piece, I get to prepare a piece I've never played before. So this is what I would like to talk to you about, and hopefully give you some helpful advice or tips. I look at it, and there are three different possibilities. The first possibility would be I'm preparing a piece which I have heard and know what it sounds like, but I have never played it. The second possibility would be I haven't heard the piece, but I can find a recording and listen to it. So I can have kind of an oral approach to getting to know the piece rather than just my part in the score. And the third possibility would be it is a piece I haven't heard and can't listen to because there's no recording available. Maybe the most exciting possibility option, at least in my opinion. I love just trying to figure out a piece without, sometimes it's a little bit too easy to just listen and rather than studying the score. Anyways, in principle, these three approaches are similar, and I will talk about the similarities and then about some different approaches. In all cases, most importantly, study the score, have a score on hand. What I like to do is I open the score on a table and I put my part right next to it, because I can look back and forth all constantly and I can make markings in my part. And some of these markings are, for example, I find it important to write in when do I play just by myself, especially when do I start a movement or a phrase by myself, because it has happened to me many times that I'm ready to play and I'm looking around the room and everybody's looking at me until I realize I'm actually the only one playing, which can be a little bit embarrassing. Not too embarrassing, just look a little silly. So I always write in solo. Whenever I just play by myself, I write in solo. Then of course, when do I have a passage with another instrument? It's also very important, maybe unison passage or a phrase which starts and ends together. I write in plus violin, plus piano, plus horn. Even if I know who I will play this piece with, I always try to avoid writing in names, because the next time could be a different person, and then if you just have a name there, that can be quite confusing. So just write in just the instrument you're playing with. I do write in rhythmic markings, for example. If I play a long note and maybe the piano has triplets underneath, I write in the triplets so I know what kind of rhythmic pattern the other instrument has. That can be extremely helpful. And then also important, I circle unexpected events. And by unexpected events, I mean, for example, a subito dynamic, subito forte, subito piano. Especially subito pianos can be embarrassing if you are the only one still playing loud. So I may mark them very much. Sudden tempo changes, all of a sudden accelerandos, ritardandos, these things when we are in the heat of the moment or we are focused on playing the right notes, can fall on the wayside. So if we circle those, they give us a kind of a visual importance, which can be helpful. Let me give you three examples of the three categories I mentioned earlier. The first one would be a piece I know and I've heard but never played. For example, recently Beethoven Opus 1 No. 1 Piano Trio. What are the different approaches between the three different categories? For example, with the Beethoven Piano Trio, I immediately started looking at the score, start to find out when do I have something important, when I'm accompaniment, that's very prominent in this kind of music. When do I have a short moment of melody or a short tune, maybe in the slow movement, I mark this, maybe even write melody or tune or something along those lines on top, so I know I have to bring this out. Even though it says piano, it's my moment for a few seconds, so that's important to mark. With music, the example I gave you, the Beethoven, it's very important to find the best available score. And there are many different editions, but we know which ones are the better ones, and that investment in purchasing that is very important in my opinion. It makes a big difference. We can find a lot of things on IMSLP for free, not always the best editions. So I would recommend to spend some time and money to find the best edition, and you can compare them with others. That's also something I do all the time. I look at this one and I see the differences, and then I try to understand why one edition might have marked something differently, maybe up or down. So comparing editions can be very helpful. The other thing I would do is listen to other early Beethoven. I try to understand, the language of an early Beethoven compared to a late Beethoven. In this case, I find it the approach much similar to Mozart and Haydn, rather than maybe the complexity of middle or late Beethoven. So I try to find, the right color. I think a little bit more of Haydn and Mozart if I try to find the sound I would like to use. In this case, I also try to look at the piano part and try to a little bit imitate the piano articulation, because the piano is a prominent instrument, and I found it my job to kind of match the shortness or length of the piano articulation. The second example would be, I haven't heard the piece, but I can listen to a recording. This summer we would have played a piece by Amanda Meyer-Röntgen, a 19th century Swedish composer, a wonderful composer, and we were supposed to play the piano trio. And that I approached in a way where I would practice from the score right away, because I want to see what is going on around me. And then I was not familiar with her language and her work, so I started to listen to anything available. It's not a lot, but it is some, and I would listen to it over and over, and just trying to understand kind of romantic language, romantic sounds she has in her music. There's a wonderful short violin concerto, violin sonata, some short violin pieces, and there's a live recording of the piano trio. So I would just listen to as much of her music as possible, just to familiarize myself with her language. Now, the third category, a piece of music which I don't know and I can't listen to, and now there's a recording available, but when I learned the piece there wasn't. It's Don Crockett's piano quartet, Ceiling of Heaven. Of course, we know Don Crockett, our senior composer in residence at the conference. Again, with his music, with this particular piece, I started to immediately listen to everything I could get my hands on by Don, and just familiarize myself with his music, especially the chamber music. Then a great advantage is that we can actually ask, in his case, we can ask him questions. So we can email him, we can call him. And I encourage everybody, if you play a contemporary piece by a living composer, don't be shy. Just ask them questions. Contact them. They're actually all very nice people, and they are very excited that people play their music, so they would like to have a conversation with us. One of the few questions I always ask is, I'm trying to confirm metronome markings, because if we don't know what the piece looks like, and if there's no recording, we kind of use tempo metronome markings as something we can hold on to. And you'll be surprised that many times they do actually change their minds. And because the piece, they start living with the piece, they get to hear it, and they might form a different opinion. So they change sometimes quite drastically. So it's sometimes can be very helpful to ask, for example, a question like, are you sure you want this quite as fast as you marked it first? And the final piece of advice would be always to practice and approach the piece very slowly. Take your time, don't go faster than you can learn the rhythm, the notes, the phrasing. Very slowly, it will pay off later, and it's so much harder to go back and correct things we kind of didn't quite learn properly from the beginning. So these are a few thoughts on this topic, and I hope you found some of them helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Visit us at cmceast.org, and I wish you all the best.